Thank you for joining the marketing show. My name is Matthew Kilmurry, founder and CEO of apartmentgeofencing.com and hotelgeofencing.com, and I'm your host. We've got an exciting show today and a topic that should be forefront on every marketer's mind this year, especially with the deprecation of third-party cookies coming. And thanks to those who are returning, the last time that we did this was really just a dress rehearsal, but so now we're extra prepared. And let's dig right in. So joining us today is Lia Nichole Smith and Carla Alicea. Welcome to the show.
Thank
Hey.
you. Welcome. Thanks.
I'm so glad that you could be here again with us today. And I'll take a moment to tell the audience more about our guests. Lia Nichole Smith is a trend-spotting thought leader with advanced theoretical and practical knowledge of solving challenges for student, conventional, affordable, military, and senior communities. Recognized by GlobeStreet as an influencer in multifamily, Lia Nichole is an expert in predictive analytics and a highly sought-after international speaker due to her ability to bring together market research, renter trends, and effective storytelling. She's a published author, industry leader, and all-around data nerd.
Absolutely.
What a great way to end that one. Yeah.
Yeah, gotta put that in there.
All right. Well, for Carla, with over 20 years in multifamily marketing, Carla has an array of expertise, including local SEO, SEM, social media strategy, and marketing tech. Former VP of marketing for a top NMHC owner-operator, now with Apartment Ratings and Satisfac's education team. Pursuing a master's in marketing research and analytics, Carla offers innovative perspectives, challenging traditional assumptions with data-driven marketing insights. Thank you both for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us again.
Yes. Thanks to everyone for joining again. And so let's jump right in, because there's so much to talk about here, but we've really distilled this down to some of the things that we really wanted to kind of share with our audience today. So let's first start off with maybe some definitions. Can you explain the key differences between zero party, first party, second party, and third party data? And when might a multifamily property utilize each type of data?
Yep. Lia?
Yeah, Carla, I think it works better in terms of explanation if we start at the bottom at third and work our way up.
Yeah.
So,
agreed.
yeah, you take that one.
All right. So when we're thinking about third-party data, you can think about this as those external studies. You don't own the data. These are not your customers, right? But it's relevant to what you're trying to accomplish. So in multifamily, we're going to use a lot of third-party data in development, right? There's no customer database yet. The building doesn't exist. We don't have prospects. We don't have guest cards. So we have to rely on that third-party data in order to build our brand, to make decisions on amenities, and so forth.
Yep. And then so the second party data, I think our industry is really familiar with, but may not realize exactly what it is. I think one of the easiest explanations is like a market survey. So when you have leasing associates that go out and they kind of trade data with their competition, that is second party data. You're getting data that's owned by someone else. And that's really to help with like benchmarking, making sure that you all are kind of, on the same kind of level playing field, if you will. And so you don't own it, similar to third party, but it's data that's being shared by someone else who does own the data.
Yeah, I like to think of it as a partnership. Changing data in some sort of a partnership.
Yeah.
I feel like that's going to be something that's new for folks, the second party data and the differentiation between the two. At AIM, I was just speaking with Placer.ai, which is a third-party data source that can help in pre-development when you're trying to understand a market. You don't have any of that data. So would second party then be like, if I'm working with, say, Yardi as my PMS, and I want kind of access to some of the data that they have for like comparable properties in the area. They've done some surveys on our behalf, and would Satisfax be considered? Do you also have second party data?
If you're a client.
Yeah.
And we do have our Satisfax Index, which is benchmarking. We have them for the surveys in its entirety, and then each individual question that's being asked on the survey.
Exactly. Then that takes us to first party data. So this is data that you're gathering directly from your customers, whether that's your internal or external customers, but it's being gathered, I'm not going to say without consent, but systematically. You're not asking any specific question, but you're getting all these data points. So when someone logs into the portal, you know what time they logged in, you know what they clicked on when they logged in, you know what kind of credit card they used to pay their rent. You know, someone's checking into an amenity, or you know, you have a ledger, you know, you can see that history, you have demographics on them from the application. This is all, I'd like to say, transactional data about your specific clients that you can use to glean some data and information and create strategies on top of. But that leads us to zero party data in Lia.
Which is our world, right? That's the world we live in, the bulk of our workday. Zero-party data is your data. It's data that is collected from your customers. They've had a firsthand experience, could be by way of a survey, could be reviews and star ratings that accompany those reviews. We are going to be talking very shortly about the content of like comments that are being sent in along with those reviews and the surveys as well. So it's your customers. They've had an experience, whether that's your internal or external customers. They've had an experience and they're providing you feedback.
Yeah, you're specifically asking them a question and they are giving you the answer. That answer could be in the form of data. That answer could be in the form of text, but it's all intelligence. And, you know, I think this is where marketers really have an opportunity, is in that zero party data, aggregating it from their guest cards, looking at their surveys. You know, we recently did a session where we asked an audience of marketers if they use their survey data when considering content strategy, messaging strategy. And a lot of them were like, oh, I didn't think of that. But you can learn a lot about your customers by analyzing that zero party data.
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense. So if I'm a marketer, the number of leads submitted in my CRM system, that's first party data, right? Their name, their phone number, when they're submitting the lead, but the insights from, you know, the comments they're leaving, or, you know, the survey from if they did do a tour, that's the zero party data. So it's just basically like a lot deeper and more insights.
Even guest card data, right? How many pets do you have? When are you looking at moving? What kind of a lease do you have? What amenities are most important to you? Because you can take that qualitative data, turn it into quantitative, turn it into numbers, and then analyze it. You could do things like segmentation off of that data and create very specific segmentation so that you can target your message very specifically to what your prospects are looking for.
Yeah, and that leads right into kind of the next piece that I wanted to dig into is, so how then is data changing the way that multifamily properties are targeting these potential residents?
Yeah, I think a couple of things in terms of marketing. You have to think about where your renters are right now. In the past, they loved the fitness center, the swimming pool, you know, the amenities. You could just post a bunch of photos and your phones would start ringing. Now it's like, okay, those are great, but really talk to me about the experience. You know, if I give you 12 months worth of rent, if I sign on for 12 months, what is life going to be like for me for those next 12 months? And I think that's where the words, the stories, to Carla's point, adds more weight in those marketing messages, because the photos, everyone at some degree, some are a little nicer, some are, you know, maybe a little bit more more outfitted in terms of their amenities, but a fitness center is a fitness center, a pool is a pool. Common areas are common areas. So it's, what is my life going to be like once I move into that community? I think that's the kind of data that marketers should really be tapping into. And that's the kind of strategies that they should be creating, you know, talk about life as opposed to the things. And we've kind of been instructed. Carla and I both come from a marketing background, and it was just inherent. You're going to talk about the things. People want the things, and renters no longer want that anymore. So it's an opportunity for people who are in that marketing tribe to do things a little differently.
Yeah, we often work with our clients to help tell more of a story. So instead of just you know, the feature list, the amenity list, to be able to you know, create an experience for somebody so they can view into like, this will be what my experience is, and there's no better way to do that than through storytelling, through connecting on an emotional level is the best way to like help craft that experience for people in a marketing message.
Exactly, Matthew. And here's the thing, especially with new construction, all this new construction, these operators and these marketers are using that third-party data to develop a brand and a narrative, right? And they're getting better, especially new construction, at creating that story. But let's flash forward a year after Lisa. Have your consumers changed? Are you still relying on that third-party data? And do you think your renters are the same people they were when they rented that they are today? And what we like to say is that we are not human machines, we are human beings. And I know that my priorities and the things that are important to me today are vastly different than the things that were important to me even just a year ago. So what's important for marketers is to develop systems that collects this data that they can analyze on an ongoing basis. And it doesn't have to be monthly, but at least on an annual basis, you should be gathering all of your data points from your surveys, from your guest cards, reanalyzing that and say, has my audience, my target market changed? Are their priorities different? And do I need to pivot on my messaging and on those stories so that I could better connect with where they are now?
I love that. And, we've seen in the data that creative fatigue sets in at the 21-day mark, significant. And so the idea of creating the initial message during lease up and then using that for the next 5 to 7 years has, it's really changed, not if it wants to be effective. And so if we're gonna see if the audience has changed over time, then we need to understand our audience. So Carla, we often hear about quantitative and qualitative data. Can you explain the differences between these two types of analysis and how multifamily properties can leverage each to understand their residents and their perspective, the prospect?
Well, you just asked me about one of my favorite subjects.
Get ready, Matthew.
This is where the nerd comes out a little bit. Okay, so we're all pretty familiar with quantitative data. Quantitative data is going to look and analyze trends. It's going to say what is happening out there. Does X amount of people prefer this or that, right? It's going to quantify it into a number. What quantitative data doesn't do is tell you the why, right? So qualitative data gets at the heart of why do they feel this way instead of that way. So when we're doing market research, these two go together very, very well. Story. I was in a focus group recently with some grad students. We were talking about online reviews and how do you use online reviews to make a purchasing decision, specifically when looking for an apartment, right? And it was a small group of maybe 10 people. And a guy speaks up and says, I don't even read the positive reviews anymore. I'm just filtering and reading the negative. And then everybody was like, oh yeah, I do that too. I do that too. So Leah and I got together and talked about that. We're like, I wonder if that's just this small group of residents or renters, or if that's a bigger trend. So we added it to a quantitative study, our online renter study, and we found out that 70% of renters are filtering for and reading negative reviews. That was a big insight that we wouldn't have even known to ask if we didn't do that qualitative research, right? Then another scenario where we can do the reverse, right? Just recently, I partnered with Christy over at RealLink. We were researching, would renters use a quick tutorial video to fix a problem in their home, instead of sending maintenance, if you could send them a video on how to fix it themselves, would they use it? Small focus group, we found out that, yeah, 4 out of 5 renters said, yeah, I'd use it. But when you listen to the feedback, we found out why they would use it. They're like, oh yeah, I don't want to wait for them. Most of the feedback was, I don't want to wait. One guy was like, I get really anxious. I don't like people in my space. That is really knowledge. That's knowledge that can really inform strategy. Oh, wait a second. We have some residents that have anxiety issues. So now we think, how could we ease their anxiety around us entering their home? Or they don't want to wait. What are some initiatives that we can do that will help speed up that delivery of maintenance service, whether it's videos or a different way of managing our facilities team? So when you put these 2 data points together, the qualitative and the quantitative, you don't just get the what, you get the why, and therefore you're able to operate and push out initiatives that are in line with your customers' expectations.
I love that, because I would think that if if a management company moved to tutorials for residents to use, some residents may feel like, hey, wait a minute, I'm paying all this money. Why aren't they coming to fix it? But with that insight that you gained, it's really all in how you speak to them. So it's, don't want to wait, or, don't want somebody in your home. Here's a video. Here's some tutorial videos that you can use, but we're also happy to come help you. You can schedule a time here. So it's a way to kind of speak to them so everybody understands the why of it.
Yes.
I love it.
Exactly.
So Leah, let's say that a multifamily property notices a decline in resident satisfaction surveys. How can qualitative research help them pinpoint the root cause of the issue?
So I think when survey scores drop, and we talked about this before, I hope I can repeat exactly what I said because it was brilliant. But when scores drop, I think people immediately kind of panic, right? Instead of sitting back and assessing change. So what has changed within our organization, within our employees? Maybe we have new team members. A team dynamic can make or break your resident satisfaction, right? Maybe we're short staffed and that's why these scores are dropping. You don't want to necessarily just automatically feel as though it's time to let's redo everything, or let's, change our surveys, or sometimes we see panic set in when the scores are dropping, especially when it's impacting an online reputation, or it's impacting, someone's ranking, or things like that. But we always look at what's happening internally that's impacting the external customer experience. Now, let's say nothing, same team, no change in policy, nothing really is going on. That's where that historical data can really start to be helpful. That quantitative historical data. You can look at trends, whether that's same time last year, that's really important. Is it seasonality? Could it be just this is your busier season and there's more work orders that are happening, or there's more move-ins that are happening? So you kind of have to look at data in a very methodical kind of way. It's layers. There's multiple layers to them. And the scores don't drop just because, there was a full moon last night when 10 residents decide to take a survey. So you really have to kind of get into it. And this goes back to Carla's point about the importance of having both quantitative and qualitative data. Oftentimes when a score drops, they are strictly focusing on the quantitative part of it, right? It went down 2 points. As opposed to, let's dig in to these comments. What are the stories that are being shared? What's happening behind the scenes, behind the numbers, that really kind of rounds out and makes sense of the decline that they're experiencing. So when we look at data, and I think the biggest thing that Carla and I try to do is we try to help clients create feedback that's going to be actionable to them. It's both focused on quantitative and qualitative, right? It's the whole garbage in, garbage out. If you're asking the wrong questions, that could skew your survey results. If your survey questions are out of order. There's not a natural flow to where someone's brain can recall their experience in a proper way. You know, if you're asking someone to recite the alphabet and you're leaving out letters, or, you know, it's all kind of all over the place, you're going to get skewed results. So you have to really look at that data in terms of what's coming in. Is it as clean as it can possibly be to help point you in the right direction? So I know I probably didn't answer the question in terms of what to do when the scores drop, but I think I kind of did in terms of taking a step back and not just looking at the score for the score's sake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, from a marketing perspective, when there's a drop in leads, say, right? We go and we look, and there's been no immediate changes that we see in terms of the cost per click and traffic to the website and kind of all the initial things that you look at. Well, the easy thing to do is just, well, let's just spend more money, drive more leads, or take the time to put on the detective hat and say, okay, what's happening here? There's a change somewhere here, whether it's our reviews or there's new product in the market, but there's been some kind of change that's resulting in this. And until you know why, then you can't really fix the underlying issue. So I love that.
Sometimes, sometimes the drop has nothing to do with our industry. It's what's happening with renters in their lives. I mean, inflation. We see, I mean, COVID, I mean, sometimes it's very obvious and it's like you can pinpoint it. But many times it's a nuance. It's just a very slight little thing that's created a domino effect for a renter.
Yep. And that leads to my next question, because it does seem like the role of marketing research and analytics is growing in importance within multifamily. And I'm curious why this is happening, and what are some of the key benefits for property owners and managers to invest in this area?
Yeah, for me, I love to see number-driven, data-driven marketers. I think you operate on a much higher level because you are looking beyond that what someone can see with their eyes, the swimming pool, the apartment, the model, and things like that. I think what's happening and why analytics has become so important for marketers is that people are changing faster than they ever have before, from technology, socioeconomic, things that are happening with people. It could be the simple fact that, I didn't get a raise this year and I've been getting one for the last 3-5 years. And so that completely changes how I have to now live my life, right? So I think when Carla, you made a great point when you were talking about that we're human beings and not human machines. This is something too that we look at how what's happening with people impacts how they behave. And so for marketers, your message has to be adaptable to those changes. You have to have a level of strategic agility so that when you are seeing that there's a shift, you're not 2 steps behind. Because your renters are not going to wait for you to catch up, right? They're going to go to the community or the marketing message that resonates with them where they are right then and there. And so marketing, analytics, research, it helps close that gap so that you're faster to respond to where your renters are. Because I promise you, the marketing messages that were put out last year are no longer relevant this year. And whatever we're doing this year, scrap it for 2025, right? So, I mean, and we just know this because of that renter population is changing so rapidly.
Yeah. I also,
oh, go ahead, Carla.
I was just going to add, when you think about operationally, what's happening within our multifamily management firms, it's becoming very tight markets. We're seeing insurance rates go up, right? Financing isn't as readily available at the lower interest rates that we used to have. And operators are really trying to maximize these investments, right? So smart operators are going to lean into data. They're going to lean into that data so that they can squeeze every penny out of their marketing dollars. Because if not, you're just going to spray and pray, right? You're going to spray out and
Yep.
pray all the same stuff that your competitors have. And it's that marketing data that's going to allow you to have product differentiation and stand out within your market. And so as those more advanced operators start to adapt data-driven strategies, everyone's going to have to as well in order to keep up, or they're going
Yeah.
to see marketing budgets start to grow and grow and grow. They won't
Yeah, I
get
agree. And I think the larger operators are investing in an analytics team, a data like a marketing analytics team.
I
Uh,
love that.
yes,
Really love
that's makes our job a lot easier. But not most companies, maybe mid-size can't afford a marketing team in an analytics team perhaps. So I love what you were saying, Leah, about as we think about hiring, and anyone listening to this who's thinking about kind of moving into higher marketing positions, make sure to get comfortable with data,
Mhm.
because those marketing managers, regional marketing managers, and VPs of marketing that have are comfortable with data and make data decisions are going to move along further in their career for sure.
Yeah, and I think too, some of the KPIs that we've been capturing for so long may not be very relevant in terms of helping companies make the better business decisions. We've been kind of just set and forget for such a long time. But again, our renters have changed. Their wants, their needs, how they behave has changed, and how your employees perform on site. So I think, revisiting some of those KPIs and maybe modernizing them a bit. And going back to Carla's point, data's only as good as, it has to be clean. Bad data leads to bad decisions. We say that all the time. And so, making sure that that data is as clean as possible is going to point your company in the right direction.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so let's bring it down to a practical level a little bit. Leah, can you share an example of how a multifamily property successfully used marketing research or analytics to achieve a specific goal?
Yeah, so I probably need to find more more case studies, but this is my go-to because they do a phenomenal job. Trilogy, and if you're on Gearish, I'm shouting you guys out. Trilogy does an amazing job when they take over a community. The first thing that they do is a takeover survey. They want to know, where are our renters today, right now, before we make any kind of decisions. And so they had a community, it's called Noka Blue. And when they did the takeover survey, the numbers were not good. If we're talking about quantitative data, not good at all. If you look at their reviews, the qualitative data, was stuff, or qualitative data, not good. Quantitative as well. Nothing was really pointing them in the direction like, we're going to keep these things. They knew that they had to change course. And so within 6 months of taking over, we helped them, put them on a plan, kind of gave them our recommendations. I'm just going to read this because I don't want to forget these, but at takeover, only 18% of their residents said they were very likely to renew their lease. That's a tough place for a new management team. 6 months later, 55% said that
Wow.
they were very likely to renew. Would you recommend the community? 59%, take it or leave it, right? Yeah, I'll recommend the community. Shot up to 73%. And even with their satisfaction scores, I mean, the overall score went from an average score to a superior score. You just saw a lot of change. Their review ratings, 3.33 to 4.31. I mean, this is textbook example. And I use them a lot because we don't see a lot of operators doing a takeover survey, right in the door. We want to know how you feel. We want to know what can be improved. We want to know where you stand today, because again, that data points you in, or points the company in the right direction. And it demonstrates right off the bat, that this new company, this new management team cares about how I feel.
Mhm.
Yes, it's I would imagine that some of those conversations are had at takeover, maybe through some interpersonal interactions.
Mm-hmm.
It's all very anecdotal, and so that's a great example of somebody who made a data decision, using that information to make the changes, and then seeing then how those changes reflected in the new ratings.
Yeah. And it's, as rents are going up, expectations are going up,
Right.
right? I mean, your renters, they're getting, more, I don't want to use the word pickier, but they're leaving less room to be flexible. How about that? As the rents are going up, they're becoming less flexible. And so that same day response time is now 2 hours. That's all they're willing to wait. But you
Expectation
don't
goes
know
up.
that. Yeah, you don't know that if you're not asking those questions and collecting that data and analyzing the data as well.
Yeah. Well, we're nearing our time, but I wanted to leave a little bit of time because we do have a bonus question today.
Oh,
So I do want to, kind of take a moment to kind of look ahead, right? And so what are some exciting trends that you see emerging in the field of data and analytics within multifamily industry? And how can multifamily properties and management companies prepare to leverage these trends?
okay, Carla, I'm gonna let you take this one first. I have to think about that. That is a two-parter.
Well, I think the first thing that we need to look at within our management firms is our organizational structure. Um, if we're still using the same type of organizational structure that we did years ago, we're really missing an opportunity. Traditionally, there's a lot of silos within our organizational structure. Departments aren't sharing data with one another. They're not understanding how each one is affecting the other's KPIs. So we really need to break down those silos and reimagine the organizational structure. And I think next is getting serious about data. And I know it may seem a far reach to create a data department. But I personally feel that in order to be successful, wildly successful with everything that is going to be coming at us as an industry, and I think that there's going to be some radical legislation changes coming at us in the next few years. Renters are stressed. Let's just put it that way. They're stressed. They're going to start speaking up more and more. If you're watching what's happening in Europe, if you're watching what's happening in our inner cities, I don't think we've seen the end of that. And so, as an operator, to maximize our returns, we're going to need that data department. So, seeing organizations create that data and analytics department internally, so that you have those stakeholders who have the knowledge to be able to collect, analyze, and visualize for the different departments how to use that data and strategize is going to become more and more relevant to success.
Yep, absolutely. I think for me, anticipating, right, Carla, what's coming at us, and we were talking about this at AIM. We have to think about Gen Z. And Gen Z, the youngest right now is 12 years old. Are we ready? And it might seem like, oh, that's 6 years from now. That's a long time from now. These kids have already formed opinions. They are well baked in terms of expectations. And so we have to really look at, how they're going to be changing this industry. We've already seen it. The elder of Gen Z is 26 right now. So over the last 7 years, think about how our industry has changed. And a lot of that is driven by that new generation becoming renters. So looking at predictive analytics, right? Looking at lead to lease to leave attribution, are you able to determine not only how they found you and why they leased, why are they leaving, and connect those three dots to help future renters that are coming in, right? Help get ready for them. I think also marketers in your marketing messages, it's great to say, you know, you're 4.5-star rated community on Google, or, you know, you're rated, you know, 5 stars. But I think what moves the needle with renters right now is to be able to say something like, you have the highest rated maintenance in the city. That's big. That speaks volumes over, we have emergency maintenance, you know, 24-hour emergency maintenance. Everyone does that. But if you're able to, you know, give numbers, you know, behind the message, or use the numbers to back up your marketing messages, it makes the case why someone should be spending money with you as opposed to, you know, the community down the street.
I love it. And I would just say, you know, maybe my input on what's coming is that you know, we talked at the very beginning about third-party cookies being phased out,
Mhm.
and we've seen that now. We actually just finished looking at some data this week, and retargeting audiences are down 10% over the last couple of months across all the
Mm,
properties that we work with. So it's
wow.
here, it's happening. And so that idea of like, what is my cost per lease, is a phrase that every marketer needs to just kind of leave behind
Mhm.
and start to understand what are the marketing metrics that make sense based on the type of advertising you're doing, whether that's branding awareness or searchability or ratings and reviews. Like, start to understand what are the metrics that I'm going to be looking at, and analyzing how the different sources are doing against each other, and start using that new language internally, because the what is my cost per lease is not going to be something you're going to be able to explain to an owner this time.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't think it has been for a long time, Matthew.
Well, yes, I would agree with that.
But it's, you know, it's hard to let go of those tried and true
Mhm.
practices. But
Yeah.
I think we're far past that at this point.
I would agree. Well, thank you so much, Leah and Carla, for being a guest today again. I really appreciate it. And thank you all, everyone here on LinkedIn who joined us. I hope you will join me again. And until then, love the journey, my friends.